How's it going, everyone? So great to be here with you. My name is Lucas Prado. And come on, we're a church with a few sites. Ajax, Port Perry, Bowmanville. I have the privilege of being the pastor in Pickering.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes, online as well. Wherever you are now, either online or with a group, or if you're watching this on your own, I'm here with the one and only Jon Thompson.
Hey, everyone.
How are you?
I'm good today. Thank you.
What a message. What a passage.
What a passage.
It's interesting because Acts chapter 6, here we're seeing all that's happening, the whole move of the Holy Spirit. By the way, first one, you were mentioning in the beginning about renewal, revival, awakening.
Yeah.
And even as you were mentioning about where we are, what do you feel the pulse of even many of our groups, in our church right now, what God is doing in our midst?
Yeah, I would say, I made reference to it, and we've talked as staff. We have had moments of revival that almost edged into awakening. I would say we're not at that period at all right now.
Right.
I keep hearing reports of renewal in people's lives. But I actually, and I'm just one of many, I'm not sure what the Lord is about to do next. I don't know. You know that we're really cautious about over-promising and under-promising. Yeah. So when I first preached this, by the way, in 2016, we were literally on the tail end of what had just happened. So this is a very different season to preach this passage. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, and we're going to finish with that because it's interesting because here they are experiencing the fullness of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
But now the passage, they're having an issue with the food program pretty much.
Yeah, rooted in a lot deeper things than food.
Yes. And with this, it's interesting because there we see both the tension of spiritual gifts and responsibility.
Yes.
And we're touching base in that. And even now, as our people, they are getting together to discuss about this. How do they truly know their spiritual gifts? And now walk on that when they know their responsibility also in ministry.
Yeah, so super quick. Number one, we've done multiple versions of a series called Spiritual Gifts. If you're new to our church or you've been around but you haven't heard it, you've got to go and listen to it.
Yeah.
Because it's so foundational. And we even talk about there's 2 or 3 ways to discover your spiritual gifts before a spiritual gift test. You should always do a test at the end, not at the beginning. And so in that series, we talk about that. That's a great way to discover it. But also we need to realize too that, like I mentioned, though we need to serve out of our spiritual gifts, we also just have to serve in general. So it's not both, it's not either or, it's both and. What we're trying to get across is if you know your gift or gifts, wherever you serve in whatever program, it's going to be a lot more empowered if you serve within your gifts. And it's critical, and we just keep begging you to know your gifts, use them, find them, and walk in them.
And once you find them and you're walking them, even as here we are, you have some gifts that I don't have.
Yeah.
I have some gifts that now as we come together, it is good to build up the whole church. And we're also going to have some tensions because even this is what they were having about the foods, or even when we think about Jesus' brother, James, when he wrote about religion, true religion, it is caring for the poor, for the orphan, for the widows.
And what's wild is James is one of the ones who says, I'm not taking care of the widows.
Yeah.
In that moment. So of course it's not, well, it's just not my problem. Yeah. What it is though, is what we see in this passage, which is so critical, is that when there is a move of the Spirit, knowing your spiritual gifts and serving them and not demanding others serve like you serve, brings unity in a church because it's not about independence or dependence, it's interdependence. Yes. And that's the ball game. And I jokingly but not jokingly said, can you imagine pastors going online and saying, I'm not taking care of the poor? They would be destroyed publicly, but they were right. They were right.
And they were right because it is the 12 apostles that they have their own gifts. And now also the 7 that they're being raised, they have specific gifts that again should build up the whole church.
Yeah.
It is needed.
Totally.
So we got to know, and I think even as we come to the group, in a practical way, discussing with each other about that.
Yeah, what are your gifts? Yeah. Where do you actually get frustrated when others aren't doing that? And also, where are you not gifted, but you still have to be disciplined? I might not have the gift of mercy, but I need to be merciful. Yeah. I might not have the gift of giving, but like I said in last week's sermon, we all need to start giving. All of us, not just some of us.
And it goes back then to the beginning of our conversation here, that actually was the beginning of your message when you were mentioning about Acts chapter 4, when the whole group of believers, they were praying boldly
yeah.
to God to move in their midst.
Right.
So what do you think, like, what should we do in these moments now where we don't know yet? Revival, awakening is not here yet, but what should we do now, even in preparation or collectively, like coming together to God in these right moments?
Yeah, two things would be great. Number one, in your groups, it would actually be good to go back and pray the prayer in Acts 4. The one that Ange preached on, I touched on for last week and this week. And again, it's a dangerous prayer because the real prayer is, Lord, not my comfort, but actually your kingdom. And I asked a lot of people to pray that. I'm not sure how many people did. So that would be good. And the other thing is, when I talked about all this stuff that's pre-Jesus in us, and a lot of people are like, well, I'm in Jesus now, so I don't need to look at my history. It's just not true. And so maybe to have an honest conversation in your groups, depending on how close you are and how how open you can be, but to talk about what hangovers do you have from family or your history that still affect how you're dealing with the church today. And sometimes it's not great. And it's even pre-Jesus stuff. And talk about how that can be prayed through, talked through, confessed, or encouraged.
By the way, I think like we have an awesome ministry with that, restoration prayer.
Yeah, restoration prayer would be good. Yes, just one good shout out. Yes, good.
So see, there's so much like for us to discuss. And I will just like say that, as even you go and have this amazing discussion with your group, know that first of all, like God's Spirit is right there with you. Holy Spirit is right there moving among all of you. So pray boldly and say, God, please. I think the beauty of the passage in chapter 4, that prayer moments, it is that as soon as they are doing this, it's a guaranteed place of encounter. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit.
Totally. And I think also too, like I mentioned at the end of the message, you might want to also have an honest conversation about the us versus them thing. Because, it's human nature to always want what someone else has. There's this thing, it's the 10th commandment, do not covet, right? But there's also this tension in church. It doesn't matter the size or scope of church. You can be in a really small church or a massive church. There's always tension between that connect group and this connect group, that ministry and that,
That's huge.
But in a multi-site church, and it's more complicated because we have suburban, urban, and rural groups that think very differently. There's a post-pandemic, a real danger in our church as we're trying to rebuild and move forward to have this us versus them thing and forget we're one church. So maybe in a connect group you need to say, or admit, actually, I've had an us versus them attitude towards this ministry, this person. Be careful with the person. Be careful how you do that. It's always like, I need to confess I hate Lucas. That never goes well in a group. Don't do that. But like, just maybe some groups need to confess, actually, you know what? We have been jealous or angry or felt this or that. And make sure that the devil doesn't get a foothold and that we don't forget actually we're one church with one vision and one mission. Because like I said, we won't be able to move forward if there's an us versus them thing among us.
We gotta be united. That's awesome. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much for taking this time here, and I hope you have an awesome time with your group now.
God bless.